Hi, everybody. We're again talking across the internet all the way to California with Dr. Shawn Baker. If you're a keen follower of the Joe Rogan podcast, you would have seen this man on his podcast a few weeks ago. Shawn is Carnivore. And Shawn, before we begin, what did you get up to on the weekend, mate?
On the weekend, what did I did some training this weekend. Played a little with my kid. He had a little birthday party I think I took him to. So just kind of a typical weekend, just kind of hanging out with the family, doing a little bit of training. I ate a bunch of steaks. That's my weekend typically.
Fantastic. So I mentioned that you're a carnivore, and when I first heard it, I was pretty shocked, and I'm sure that's the reaction most people get at first instance. But the more you look into it, the more it makes sense, and the more I hear you talk about it, the more it makes sense. And so who is Shawn Baker today? Not just a carnivore, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, obviously, I've been promoting it as a potential option for people to help with health issues, and it seems to help with performance. But yeah, I mean, I am I've been a lifelong athlete, and so I've always competed in a bunch of different sports, including spending some time in your beautiful country playing rugby. But so I've found that, continuing with athletics, even as I get older, I'm in my 50s now, and I still continue to want to compete at a very high level. I had a background as an orthopedic surgeon, which I practiced for about, 2 decades, in which, that was very rewarding for me. I find that, one of the issues I have currently with the way, modern medicine, we so much effort on the sort of managing symptoms. Diseases have already been established, and we put a lot of money in that. And most of the diseases we're dealing with are preventable, and I think a lot of the pain and suffering people have had, it could have been prevented had we, implemented the right lifestyle changes and put our focus there. The unfortunate reality is there's not much financial incentive to do so, and so we tend to prefer to money on the back end, and that's frustrating for me. And so I've kind of gotten at odds with Jim.
Yeah, so we just sort of cut out there when you said that you're at odds with medicine at the moment in the way that it tends to treat the symptoms, and that there's not a lot of money in preventing things.
Yeah, I mean that's what I found. I mean, I found that I've been able to make a much bigger impact just by being on social media and promoting a different diet than by, operating on thousands of people. And so it's eye-opening, and it's hopefully it'll be something that more and more people will start to sort of adopt this sort of style of trying to prevent disease from happening in the first place. Because I think most people, if you'd ask them, they'd rather not have the disease rather than have the disease and then have some cure that well, not even a cure, just a symptom, a symptom tool. So yeah. I think prevention is where it's at. It's where it's got to be. It's the only thing we can afford to do long term. So that's where medicine really needs to go. We need to get back to our roots and not depend on high-tech technology to treat diseases. We need to prevent the diseases. Is where we need to focus our money.
Absolutely. And in this part of the world, we've got Gary Fettke, orthopaedic surgeon. What is it about orthopedics that really drives you to go, hang on a minute, what I'm doing is great, but I'm not solving anything here?
Yeah, Gary's another great guy, and he's in Australia. Don't hold that against him. I know you guys Kiwis kind of have a rivalry for that. Yeah, I mean, I think he found that the same kind of thing that I found, that you could prevent much of these illnesses with just fixing diet, and all the surgeries we're doing, many of them were unnecessary and should have never had to happen in the first place. He was likewise chastised for doing something similar. Orthopedic surgeons tend to be, fairly straightforward, hit it with a hammer type of thing. But, once you figure out what's the right tool for the job, sometimes you really want to try to use that.
Fantastic. So for those that missed the Joe Rogan podcast, you're sort of directing a group of practices, is that right? And unlike Gary, where they questioned him giving out dietary advice, a network of people sort of looked at the way you're practicing and pushed you out that way. Is that correct?
Some of it broke up. I'm not sure. Talking about what happened with me career wise. Are you talking about? Yeah. Was that the gist of the question?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I was advocating diet and lifestyle changes and less aggressive surgeries. That I made numerous requests to, cut back on the number of operations I could do, so that I could focus more on that. And the hospital administrative folks, because I knew that loses them money when I do that, strongly prevented me from doing that. And so when I decided to do it anyway, they took some actions against me, which negatively impacted me, and they put me through a peer review process, which was done in a very unfair fashion. It's kind of a long story, but the net result of it is I left the hospital, and I'm not practicing right now because of that. And hopefully I'll be able to, maybe get back to practice, although I'm not sure that I want to do that particularly full time. I'd rather, again, work on the prevention side. So this is, if I can make it a viable, make a viable option out of that, I'm going to try to do that instead.
That's exciting times. So you slipped in there that you came out here to play rugby. How did, we don't see too many Americans playing rugby. How did you come across rugby, and what did you sort of get out of playing a sport like that, which is full of camaraderie, a lot of skill, but at the same time, a lot of power and strength?
Yeah, I mean, I was in my early 20s, and I was just training at a gym in the U.S., and a guy sort of asked me to come play for the local team. This was when I was in medical school. He kind of jokingly said, if you didn't play for the team, I wouldn't let you train at my gym anymore. So I did it, and then I actually just started playing. And I was pretty athletic, a big, strong guy that was fast and could jump well. And so I started playing either number 8 or lock typically, and ended up being pretty good. Made the within a few months I was selected to the All Texas team based on, I think, just pure athletic ability more than anything else. And then within a year, I was on the Western U.S. team, and then I got recruited to come play for Hautapu there in Cambridge. And they flew me over. It was a great time. Got to spend a season with the guys out there. Played in the Waikato with against some of the All Black players that were in the league. Fraser Tech and Hamlin Old Boys, and Taupri and all those teams that are in that league. Leamington, of course, and had a wonderful time. The people in New Zealand were just wonderful people. I love the country. They've got a real sort of sports mindset. It's a very sport loving country, which I think is wonderful. It's just I ended up playing for about 7 years altogether. I kind of stopped when I was about 30 years old, when I decided to go back to medical school, because I had left medical school to come play rugby, actually. So, it was just a wonderful experience. I remember some of the names of the team. I know we had the Hirwini brothers, Phil and Dean. I don't know if they're still around. I don't know if
Yeah, still around, mate.
Okay, yeah. So those guys were on the team, and I mean, we had Jaime. I can't remember what Jaime's last name was. Goodness.
Yeah. He's the current premier coach at Hautapu at the moment, Craig Stevens.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know he was. I know he had to run it, trying to make the All Blacks for a while. And then we had got some of the other guys named Campbell. I can't remember Campbell's last name. We had Kevin Cronin. Anyway, much of these guys that were back on the team in the days, I forget some of the guys' names. I lived with a guy named Paul Dunny. He was a policeman. I think he was on the Waikato B team, but he was a great host while I was there. Yeah, it was just a great little town, and I had a great time there.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I see you've got a couple of records on a Concept 2 Ergometer rowing machine. How did that come about? We've got plenty of rowing fans on this show, and we've interviewed one of the New Zealand 8 members. How did rowing get into your life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what is that, Lake Karapiro right down the road
right.
There's a whole bunch of rowing that takes place in New Zealand. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Rob Waddell.
there at the moment.
I think interesting. Rob Waddell was, he was obviously the New Zealand gold medalist, and he's still got the world record on the 2K for the rowing machine. But I think he played for Hautapu as well for a little bit. But I kind of just maybe was reading about it through CrossFit or something like that, and I saw a Concept 2 rowing machine. I just hopped on it just to try it. And for 500 meters, I rode like first time I rode like a 1:25, which is a pretty decent time, having never done it before. And so, as competitive as I am, and I was kind of transitioning away from some of the other sports I competed in, I got tired of being so heavy. I was probably about 130 kilos at the time, 290 pounds, and I just slimmed down actually from that because I was tired of carrying so much weight. So I wanted a new sport I compete at. And so at about 110 kilos, which is what I kind of tend to hang out now, I found out that I could do that pretty well. And I just kept doing it, got some coaching, trained with a guy named Zeno Muller, who was a gold medalist from Switzerland, who lives kind of out not far from me. And so he kind of coached me a little bit. And then, I just kind of kept working on the technique and kept working on the developing my own training style. And after a while, I started breaking world records on it, for the shorter distances, 500 meters, 100 meters, and the 1 minute row. I'm currently working on the 1,000 meter world record. So hopefully I'll have that. But yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing now. I'm trying to get the 1,000 meter 50 plus record. I'm hoping that I should be able to make an attempt at it within the next couple of weeks and hopefully get it. So we'll just see what happens.
What's the time that you're going for there?
Right now it's 2 minutes, 49.2 seconds. So my best previous last year was 2:54. We'll see what a year of carnivore has done for me. So I think if I can pull another 5 seconds off, I think I'm probably there. I mean, based on just some of the preliminary work I'm doing right now, you kind of have to calculate what you can do. But I think I should have a reasonable shot at that. So we'll just see what happens.
Nice. And so was the deadlifting at the same time as the rowing, or I'd imagine that gives you a pretty good base. Not many people realize that it's power through the feet for rowing. How do you find deadlifting correlates to see you walking around with a big stack of weights yesterday?
I mean, that particular exercise, probably, I don't know what it does for rowing. I was just in some of the strongman stuff I used to do. Yeah, I think having a big deadlift certainly benefits rowing, particularly the shorter distances, where it's more, you're right, it's more strength based. And so deadlifting, squatting, jumping, some of the plyometric stuff, staying explosive, I think all supports that aspect of the rowing. Heavy kettlebell swings, those things for me have been translated pretty well to rowing. But yeah, it's a lot of power efficiency and being able to get enough power into the machine per stroke. But then you also have to have the conditioning component to do that, several times in a row, maybe 50, 60, 70 times in a row, 100 times in a row, depending on what rate you're rowing at. But yeah, you need sufficient strength to row those fast times for sure.
Absolutely. How have you said you got to knock off 5 seconds. How have you found the year of being carnivore has affected your sort of endurance and repeatability of street?
Yeah, I mean, it's helped with my recovery for sure. I'm able to train harder at a higher intensity for longer periods of time with very little time off, and so it's been nothing but helped. With a 500 meter, I went from I started the year at about a 117, and I got down to about a 114, which is a pretty significant improvement. That was done all completely on a carnivorous diet, and I think I'm probably faster than that right now. I just have to put together a few weeks of consistent training, which I've been traveling a bit much to do it like I want to. But it's helped quite a bit. I mean, I think for me, it's kind of interesting. I talked to another fellow from the guys trying to make the Australian team, and he's just noted that he switched to carnivore, and he just pulled a 2K at 6:30 at rate 20, which is that's a pretty big rate 20 row. It's 6:30 is pretty decent for anybody. That gets you up at a high level. So he finds for him that the carnivore diet has helped him at the 2K distance. So, I found that in everything else, with strength, with speed, with things what many people would think would be highly glycolytic. The 500 meter distance in particular, I found nothing but improvement as a carnivore.
Great. So how do you become, how did you start being carnivore? Like I said, the first impression is, oh, this is nuts. What sort of took you down that road to end up eating steaks?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. When I first read about it, I thought it was kind of crazy too, but I thought, well, I'm just going to try it for a month. I was already on a ketogenic diet and doing well, and doing well performance-wise, but I thought just maybe, I read about some of the older school weightlifters and bodybuilders and athletes and people that have used meat, as a performance enhancement tool. So I thought I would just try it, for 30 days, and I did, and I noted that, my health improved. You know, some of the sore joints and stuff I'd had, you know, again, in my 50s, you kind of have more wear and tear on your body. And I noticed those things went away. And that was something that kind of set a light bulb off in my head. I went back to the ketogenic diet for a day and I didn't feel as good. So I jumped right back on a carnivore diet. And I've been that way for the last, you know, nearly 14 months now. And so it was just a matter of the desire to continue to improve my health and the desire to continue to improve my performance. And that's what I found to be true. And that's what I continue to find to be true.
Fantastic. And apart from the way you feel, I know soon you're going to be talking with Rob Wolf and revealing your blood work after a year. But what sort of things do you monitor throughout the year or day or week? What sort of things do you do?
Well, I mean, as far as, you know, just, you know, overall health-wise, I think it's very important to monitor, you know, the subjective things, which are ultimately the most important to you. You know, how do your joints feel? How's your digestion? What's your skin health like? What's your mood? What's your libido? What's your body composition? Those things tell you as much or more about your health than you know, blood markers. And I've sort of taken a lot of criticism about this, but the stuff we can measure in blood is very transient. It changes quite a bit, and it's highly context dependent. And so when I go on Rob's show and I talk about my blood work, some of the stuff we have to put into perspective based on physiology and clinical, you know, what's going on clinically. And so a lot of people, they don't realize that, and they think that a particular blood value is always relevant in all cases, and you know, they don't really put it into clinical perspective, which I'm going to hopefully talk about that on Rob's show. You know, there's some things you can check that you know, like things like your C-reactive protein, which is a measure of inflammation. That can give you a general idea of what your inflammation is going on, but you have to remember that even intense training can radically change that. And so we have people that, you know, they worry that their C-reactive protein has changed, you know, by a few points from one reading to the next, but they don't take into the fact that, you know, if they worked out hard in the 72 hours prior to that, that can totally throw that off. So there's a whole bunch of things. You know, your cholesterol can change, you know, 100 points in a week. And, you know, we also get tied up into measuring once every 6 months and thinking that's what it means the whole time. So there's, you know, like I said, I think you have to put into perspective what really matters. You know, when I think about inflammation, you know, if my joints are achy and inflamed, that is a pretty good sign of inflammation. If they're not achy and inflamed, that's a better sign of inflammation. It's probably better than any lab value you can take.
Absolutely. And our bodies tell us a whole bunch. And you spoke about digestion and I've seen you have a few heated discussions on Twitter about fiber and the fact that, you're missing out on all this fiber, but not just yourself, but many people that are sort of talking about the carnivore diet have said the complete opposite, and in fact they're regular and in a good form.
Yeah, I mean, that is, you know, we're told that we have to have this fiber. It's based on some really, you know, I don't think particularly good science. And, you know, I think the reasons fiber may be helpful is it's helpful in the context of a junk food diet. You know, if your diet is sugar and sodas and, you know, Twinkies and stuff like that, Tim Tams. I don't know if they have Tim Tams, and I think it's an Australian product. But
we've definitely got those.
Yeah, so you know, if that's all you're eating, then fiber is going to help you. But if your diet doesn't have those things, then fiber doesn't have much of a benefit. And you know, the latest thing is about the microbiome and saying you have to feed these bacteria fiber, or they'll eat the mucus in your intestines and cause problems. Well, the problem with that is the reason the mucus is there in the first place is because fiber irritates your intestines. And so the reason you have those bacteria is because they eat fiber, and the reason the mucus is there is because the fiber irritates your intestines. Well, if you don't have the fiber, you don't need as much mucus and you don't need those bacteria. So it's kind of circular logic that people are kind of getting into. But I've had no fiber in my diet whatsoever for 14 months, and I have no issues whatsoever when it comes to digestion or bowel movements or anything like that. In fact, it's as, you know, it's as painless and as healthy as I can imagine it's ever been. You know, a lot of people will comment the fact that they're bloating, they're cramping, they're, you know, gas, and that stuff just completely goes away on a carnivorous diet. And I think that's how we're supposed to be. I don't think digestion is supposed to hurt us. I don't think we're supposed to be bloated. I don't think we're supposed to be gassy. I think those things are not signs of health. I think those things are actually the opposite. And there's some studies out there that show that people that go on low or no fiber diet cure chronic constipation. There's also studies that show that people that eat lots and lots of fiber are at higher risk for things like diverticulosis. And so I don't think the word on fiber as being the all-important panacea is finalized. And I think people that are omitting it from the diet are tending to prove that wrong.
Nice. And you spoke about circular logic. Are you sort of leading towards the fact that perhaps all these vitamins and minerals that we need may be more due to the fact that we need them for carbohydrate metabolism? Is that where your head sort of...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, research that indicates many of the vitamins and cofactors that we say we need at certain amounts based on the recommended daily allowances are required to run carbohydrate metabolism. So we know that when you don't run carbohydrate metabolism, you don't need as many vitamins and minerals. We also know that many of the foods, carbohydrate foods that those vitamins and minerals are contained in, are also containing anti-nutrients, fiber, which inhibits absorption, and so they're more difficult to even extract from those plants and carbohydrate sources. And so what's happening is not only do your requirements for vitamin and minerals go up on a plant-based diet, but they're harder to get on a plant-based diet. And so the reason that I don't have scurvy, or none of these people, the thousands of people that have done this, do not have scurvy, is because our requirements for vitamin C drop when we don't take in carbohydrates. The same thing with magnesium and all these other minerals and micronutrients.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And I see a common question people often ask is, what do you eat with your steak? And it's a very blunt answer of salt.
Or another steak. Yeah, that's literally, I've eaten almost 99% of my diet is just a steak every day, about twice a day. Sometimes I'll throw in a few eggs. Sometimes I'll have a little seafood. Very rarely I'll have a little dairy, but that's been my diet for 14 months, and I am, certainly no worse off for that. In fact, I continually feel like I'm getting healthier and dare I say younger as time goes by, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely. I was listening to somebody yesterday who was keto and is following your journey and has been going carnivore as well, and they sort of said that the common thought would be, oh, you get sick of steak, but actually he's finding he's enjoying it more and more. And one of the things you've been talking about is, instead of intermittent fasting, you're having intermittent feasts of steak. How's your experience been with the flavor and the satiety and sensation of eating just meat?
Yeah, I joke that I've become my dogs, because my dogs, they get the same thing. I give them some beef every day, a little ground beef. And they literally, when it's time to eat, they're jumping up and down. They're drooling all over the place, super excited. They're happy to eat their food. And I'm the same way. Literally, that's what I look forward to. I don't miss the other stuff. It's hard to believe. I know we're kind of inundated with this concept that we have to have 50 different flavors a week to be satisfied. But, if you think about it historically, evolutionarily, if you go back 50,000 years ago, there wasn't much on the menu. You didn't have a menu. It wasn't like 50 options to choose from. I think human beings evolved eating a very monotonous diet, and primarily a lot of it was probably meat-based. You think about what was available worldwide, particularly in an ice age. You weren't getting bananas in Central Europe during the ice age. Those things didn't exist. And so I think humans are well designed to eat, fatty meat in particular. I think if we were hunting these big fatty megafauna animals, which were prominent back then, I think we have an innate sort of natural desire to eat that, and it's primarily satisfying. It's really satisfying to eat a nice fatty, well-cooked steak with a little salt on there. That to me is more satisfying than anything else I could possibly eat. And it's what really appeals to me. And I look forward to every meal. In fact, I had a steak for breakfast, about a 2-pound ribeye, and I'm going to have another probably 2-pound ribeye for dinner. And I'm already thinking about it and looking forward to it. So it's counterintuitive. The more you do this, the less you crave other foods, and you get more and more restricted. But you do that out of self-selection. And I think it's what makes you feel the best, and it's what you truly desire. And it's like every single meal for me is a cheat meal, because I'm having a great steak every meal. And to me, people ask me about cheat meals, I say every meal is a cheat meal as far as I'm concerned.
Fantastic. And you said, there's now thousands of people doing this. You've created an N equals many study. Is that the Meat Heals site, or is there another site that's documenting a lot of people's journey.
Yeah, so meatheals.com, we're starting to collect the anecdotes of people that have cured all kinds of chronic diseases with adopting carnivore, things like mental health, skin health, digestive health, joint pain, other things that, that people just struggle to deal with, that doctors can't figure out. We're getting people that are literally revolutionizing their life. So we're collecting those stories. We're putting up, one a day or one every other day, just to kind of slowly build it up. We're getting all kinds of people submitting their data. n=many.com was an attempt to collect data on people that are doing this. And so we have right now probably over 1,000 people that have submitted data. We're still analyzing and collecting that data. Hopefully we'll be able to publicize that, kind of summarize everything, so people can see what people's experience has been, both subjective and then some laboratory data for those people that want that. And so we're continuing to just try to further answer questions, because this is really the wild, wild west of nutrition as far as modern research is concerned. I would argue that from an evolutionary standpoint, this is probably a pretty normal diet. Back 50,000 years ago, going on an all-meat diet, if you lived in Central Europe during the Ice Age, was probably a pretty normal day-to-day thing. We even see that still today among some of these populations that live in the really cold climates, that they don't bat an eye at eating meat every day. And so, but what we're finding is, in general, what I'm seeing over and over again is people are, saying they feel the best they've ever felt in their life. And so it's interesting, it's compelling, and it's inspiring for me to keep going with this.
And you said there's still areas of Europe that are doing it where it's cold. You're in Iceland. How was the reception there?
No, Iceland was great. Yeah, the folks brought me out to Iceland to talk about this, do a little seminar on both training, because I train, kind of a unique training system and philosophy, and then also the diet. And yeah, they totally get it. I mean, they're not too far removed from, a couple hundred years ago when there was not much to eat in Iceland. You weren't fruit and vegetable didn't exist there. They got a little bit of grain they imported from Denmark, but I mean, they basically had to live on the seafood and the animals they brought over, primarily lamb and a little bit of beef, but a lot of, the little bird they like there, I'm blanking on the name of the little cute little bird that they eat, the puffin. Yeah, the puffin, and then the whale and the shark and seal, and whatever else is available to them. They understand that. That's what they've lived on for literally centuries, since they were founded about 1,000 years. I think it's like 800 AD was when 870 AD is when Iceland was founded, and most of what they survived on was animal-based food. And those people are healthy. I mean, they produced some of the healthiest, biggest, strongest people on the planet. As we know, some of the world's strongest man competitors, several have arisen from there. And Iceland's a small country. It kind of reminds me a little bit of New Zealand. New Zealand has quite a few more people, but still the same thing. We've got this sense of a small nation that comes together and tends to be tremendous at sports. New Zealand has obviously a history of lots of lamb, lots of sheep to eat, and so some of that, I think there's some similarities there.
Yeah. And you've got a bit of a fan here in New Zealand, and I had a chat to him as well. Owen Franks he's gone from keto to being a bit more carnivore, and for the last month he's been enjoying it, managing to be as lean as he's ever been, fit and strong as he's ever been, and heavy as well. What was it like getting reached out from one of probably the best props in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting. I think we're going to find that, more and more athletes are taking this up. I'm getting professional baseball players and mixed martial artists and endurance athletes and all kinds of, fairly high-level athletes that are starting to adopt this, and they're finding that their recovery is excellent. They're finding their recovery is much better. I think the fact that meat contains so many wonderful performance-enhancing, natural substances, things like creatine, things like carnosine, things like heme iron, certainly the protein source is excellent. I think all those things support training. And, to see someone like Owen Franks, who obviously is huge in the world of athletics, particularly in New Zealand, adopt this, it'll be interesting to see how he does over the coming season if he continues with this. I think certainly if he does well, we'll see a lot more athletes jump in on this. But I've seen, already a lot. I try to demonstrate day to day, even as an old guy, that you can train extremely hard and do extremely well just eating meat. And I think it's different than keto. I think it's a notch above keto from a performance standpoint. That's what I've found, and I think a lot of people that do this find this. I think I think it helps with testosterone function as well. I think there's something to be seen with that. And that's why I think people are noticing improvements in strength and lean body mass and, overall body composition. So I think if you're stronger and you're faster and you're fitter, your recovery is better and your joints stop hurting, you're going to be overall a better athlete. And hopefully Owen will demonstrate this this year. And I know his brother Ben has kind of reached out to me a little bit too, to kind of, I think, Owen has kind of stimulated his brother to think about it as well. So maybe we'll see both of the Franks brothers becoming more beastly than they already are. They'll become carnivorous beasts.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it'll quickly trickle through. I know a number of the front row forwards in New Zealand are already intermittent fasting, and of course, to be able to do that, you need to support it with the right food, or else you'll feel hungry and you'll feel lethargic in training. So, I think you might have started a revolution amongst big, strong front row forwards who now need very dynamic players. So.
Yeah, we'll see. Cool. We'll see. I mean, I think obviously strength and power endurance is a huge component of playing in the pack. But that's the other thing I talk about, intermittent feasting, because I think you do have to get at it. If you're going to go a long period of time without food, you need to really make sure you're well fueled and eat enough. And so, like I said, I'll often eat, a kilo and a half in a single setting, just because that's what it takes for someone my size to, do what I need to do athletically.
Yeah. One of the things that's been particularly interesting to me is that a lot of people have talked about their eyesight improving. And over the last couple of days, there's been a number of videos coming out about macular degeneration and vegetable oils and that sort of stuff, and how a low-carb diet can improve that. And that's one of the things I investigated with one of the researchers here in New Zealand, Grant Schofield. He spoke about these guidelines that say, no vegetable oils, lots of fish, lots of healthy fats, and a little bit away from the carnivore diet, but those green leafy vegetables, but no fruits and things like that. Has anybody really said what it is about their vision that's improved? Has it been the power of their glasses, lines on a chart, or has it been reversal of things like macular degeneration?
The ones I've been aware of has primarily been improvements in just acute eyesight. Like I said, they can read at farther distance. They can read without their reading glasses. There's some things, potentially things like cataracts, which form later in life, often occur due to glycation of the lens. And so I think when you're not, running with a lot of glucose, or you're not oxidizing fats, that may keep the lens from clouding up. So I think there's a number of mechanisms that may potentially help with eyesight. I can't say that it's well investigated yet as to why that's occurring, but I think a number of just general body conditions all improve with dropping certain problematic toxic compounds out of your diet, whether it's vegetable oils or high sugar diets, or even some of the compounds, the natural pesticides that are found in plants that might particularly trigger an autoimmune response or trigger out some other kind of tissue damage. So I don't know, but I am hearing a number of accounts about eyesight improving. I think Tim Noakes in South Africa has also noted that, he's pretty popular with the so-called banting movement. And so I can't say personally that I've seen a big change in my eyesight, maybe a little bit. I don't wear glasses, so I don't know that I've got that much room to improve, but I have definitely heard that from a number of people.
No, and if you're in your 50s and not wearing glasses, you're one of the exceptions, especially when it comes to reading. So, there's an N equals 1 right here. And I know after we published that article, a family friend who had macular degeneration, she improved 1.5 lines on the chart just from cutting out carbs for a month. So, there's big things there. Now, you've just released, is it the Carnivore training system? Is that right?
Yeah, I started that a little while ago. We've got, quite a few people signing up for that. It's just, like I said, I've had all these experiences in sports, from rugby to powerlifting to strongman to Highland Games to track and field to now indoor rowing. And I've managed to, either set national or world records in most of those sports, some of them being age related, but I've kind of taken and sort of synthesized all that sort of knowledge from training together into a program that's, what I find to be most effective and most efficient. I think there's a lot of inefficiencies in the way people train. I think that a lot of people spend a lot of time wasting their time doing stuff that doesn't really get them to their goal. I mean, I think a lot of people spend time learning these skills on lifts. It really, it becomes a waste of time for a lot of people. And then safety. That's the other thing. I see a lot of people doing stuff that, they can get hurt doing. And so I try to, as an orthopedic surgeon, I don't want to see people getting hurt. And so, I just kind of boiled that down into a system. It includes talking about how to implement a carnivorous diet, some of the issues that come up with carnivory. How do you change? How do you mentally handle it? And then how do you physically do the training? And then I give live feedback pretty regularly. In fact, tomorrow, the next session we're going to do is tomorrow. I'll have people just sign up and ask me questions how things are going, and I try to get them going. And most people that have been doing it are really enjoying it. They're saying it's unlike any other training system they've done before. I emphasize a lot of explosive training in addition to strength training, hypertrophy work, as well as conditioning, which I think all of those things play into health. So it's more of a health, optimizing your health type of approach to training.
No, that's awesome. And so you're across Instagram. You often do while you're cooking your steak, you have a chat with people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing the so-called steak talks. I just found that as a time where I'm kind of a captive audience, and so I can cook my steak and chat with people. Because a lot of people want to ask me how I cook, so I usually just throw a steak on a grill, chat for 20 minutes or so while it's cooking, while it's cooling, and then just answer whatever questions. I might have a little topic that I'm kind of ranting about. Often it'll coincide with the post I put up recently. I usually do that, once a day, sometimes twice a day. It's fun to interact with the people that are on Instagram. I've got a growing following on Instagram. It's getting more and more every day. I think I'll have quite a big audience in the coming future. Shawn, S-H-A-W-N, Baker, B-A-K-E-R, 1967 is where I am on Instagram. And like I said, I try to be interactive at least once a day on that particular account. I'm also pretty active on Twitter, which is SBakerMD. I started the World Carnivore Tribe at the end of December in preparation for World Carnivore Month, and we've got closing in on 5,000 members pretty quickly, and that's growing again pretty rapidly. Our next big event is March Meatness. It kind of goes with the American basketball NCAA tournament, which we call March Madness. So we're going to have March Meatness. And then, of course, meatheals.com, which is, again, the site where we're collecting all these stories. So those are the things that are where I'm at, where I can be found. I might do I think I'm going to do some personalized consulting for people. There's some people have asked me to help with that. They have some more extensive questions they want to answer. So I'll probably open up to start doing that as well.
Lovely. And so just before we go, is there any piece of advice that you've had across the years that you'd like to share, or something that's really sort of driving your way of life at the moment that you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think lifestyle is very important. Diet, exercise, nutrition, sleep. Those things are all important, for your overall health. But I think, you have to define your health correctly. And I think, the things that are important to you, should be the things that are important to you. How do you sleep? How's your digestion? How's your skin health? How's your libido? How's your performance in the gym? How's your exercise capacity? How's your mood? Get those things in line, get those things optimized, and don't worry about necessarily lab values or epidemiologic studies. And then whatever you do to get yourself optimized that way, continue to do that and continue to evaluate that. And as long as it's working, the biggest predictor of whether you're going to be alive and healthy 10 years from now is really what your health is like today. And so if you are fit, robust, vigorous, can exercise well, have good body composition, your joints feel good, the odds of you being that way in 10 years is much higher than if the opposite were true. And so it doesn't matter what somebody from some scare tactic video shows you about people living long in Okinawa or any of those other things. Those things don't directly apply. There's too many variables that go into that. So you really have to look internally and see what really is driving your health, and then continue to replicate those things.
No, thank you very much, Shawn. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll let you move on to the rest of your day, and thanks so much.
All right. I appreciate it, Ryan. I'm going to probably get some rowing and some more training here in a little bit and some more steak cooking. So that's the day.
Sounds a hell of a day. Thanks so much.